So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to give folks a little bit of time to kind of sign on, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Like Beatriz said, we're going to give it a few minutes for people to log in and join us, but we're really excited to have you here. Please feel free to use the Q&A for asking us questions. We will have time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions. Yes, use the Q&A feature. It should be at the bar on the bottom of your screen. If you're on a desktop or a laptop, then I believe it's the same. If you're on a mobile device, you should see a Q&A kind of sticker button that you can push on.
Okay, it looks like we can go ahead and get started. So hi, everyone. My name is Beatriz Barron. My gender pronouns are she, her, hers, and welcome to our presentation Behind the Like Social Justice and Community Building via Instagram. And I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angelica, and I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a program coordinator at the University of Washington, and I'm very excited to be here.
And we will be using Google's closed captioning. They are a little delayed and then also aren't completely perfect or correct depending on some words that we're saying. So we do apologize. A recording of this will also be available on our YouTube channel, on the CCC's YouTube channel, and I will share a link to our social media towards the end. Next slide, please. So this is our land acknowledgement, which was adopted from the Intertribal Resource Center at UC San Diego. So the UC San Diego University of Washington communities holds great respect for the land and the original people of the area where our campuses are located. UC San Diego was built on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. Today, the Kumeyaay people continue to maintain their political sovereignty and cultural traditions as vital members of the San Diego community. Do you want to read the bottom part?
The University of Washington acknowledges the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. We acknowledge their tremendous contributions to our regions, and we thank them for their stewardship.
Next slide. And so here are just a few community guidelines. A brave space, so we can't guarantee a safe space, but we do a brave space where folks can speak out, ask questions, and ask us about different perspectives and the things that we do. Sharing the air, I know it's a little different in this virtual world, but definitely making sure that everyone engages and asking any questions that you might have. The use of inclusive language, and again, staying engaged, ensuring that you ask us any questions throughout the presentation, or if you want to leave them through the end, and making sure that you use the Q&A and also the chat feature. So I will share right now a link to this resource folder that we created that has persona activity and then some other content tools that you all can use. So we did want to kind of start the conversation before we got started to think about, who are you, what students, think about what attracts students to your centers or to your programs or any department that you might work for. Who is your audience? Are your students on Instagram? Most of students, Gen Z now are on Instagram and other forms of social media. Is this information being shared for your colleagues and leadership, or is it both? And then what are other funnels for communication? What is your mission statement? So making sure that you are aware of that and how your account reflects the mission, vision, and goals. And I've shared that link, so feel free to use some of the stuff that's on there and as we talk about through our presentation.
Yes, before we get started, or as we're getting started, if folks want to let us know where you're from, feel free to use the chat box to interact with one another. The whole purpose of this is that, we build community as well, and we learn from one another. So if your organization, your department, your student group has an Instagram account, let us know in the chat box. I'm going to share a little bit in the next couple of slides about a few different accounts that I've managed this year on Instagram and kind of what the outcomes were of these accounts. The first one is Mentor Power for Success. So as you know, we went virtual. And so I had to kind of think about what are the ways in which we're going to interact with our students that doesn't feel like another Zoom session. Ironically, we're here on Zoom, and this might be your second, third, or fourth meeting for the day. So let's talk about it, right? I wanted to really think about my students who are already taking 3 or 4 classes. How do I engage them in a way that they feel like it's more natural or they don't have to work toward it? So Mentor Power for Success, if we look at the format that Beatriz just recommended, the biggest question is, who are you? So as I'm creating this account, I really want to use that bio description to really say, what is the purpose of this program? If someone Googled Mentor Power for Success, would they be able to access the information that they need? It's a first year and continuing UW students equals mentor power for success, right? So it's a mentoring program between those who are starting at the university and those who are already established at the university. Who is your audience? So again, this is linked back to our larger Instagram account that supports the center, which MPFS is run out of, and that's the Ethnic Cultural Center at UW. So maybe someone stumbles onto our Mentor Power for Success account, but realizes, you know what, I'm a graduate student or I'm a parent of a student. How can I still access this information without having to go into a deep dive? It also says, who is this account run by, right? For many of you, if you have Instagram accounts for your department, student group, or club, you have to think about, do people know who's behind the screen, right? Is this account run by students? Is it run by an employee? What can we expect from the person who's doing this, running the account? And then again, what is your mission statement? Does the account reflect that in your feed and in your stories? So I link this back to our website. I link it back to send me an email, but it also highlights, why does Mentor Power for Success exist? Through our feed, you'll be able to see things like who the coaches are. So the Mentor Power for Success program, the way we decided to do it was we gamified the experience. What we did was we took incoming students and we put them into two groups, Team Gold and Team Purple. And these students were broken up by academic interest. Everyone, all the incoming students had a 1-to-1 mentor ratio. And the purpose of these team groups was to establish a competition between both groups. So students could earn points by, submitting pictures. So if you look at the bottom two right pictures, we did a celebrating being first gen event. So for every student that submitted a story about what it meant to be first gen, that team that they represented got points. We also, for students who participated in this program, we did Instagram reels teaching them how to do a tie-dye. So we sent them swag, but then we also incorporated that into the challenges that the students had to complete. And then it was also getting to know the coaches, right? So you see a little information about the coach for Team Gold, which was a graduate student. Her name was Jen, and she was in the Master of Social Work program. And then Team Purple was represented by Juan Carlos, who is also a master's student or a graduate student in the Information Science program. So this was just really a great way for us to communicate with our students. But we also recognize that not all of our students were on social media. So what we did was, in that Linktree in our bio, students could submit points or could request points for getting involved in an activity if they didn't have social media, because we also wanted to make sure that social media wasn't the only way for our students to engage with us. Another program that we did, right? So Mentor Power for Success was clearly targeted at incoming students and returning students. One thing that I wanted to take advantage of as well was the larger Seattle community. So in my role, I work on leadership development for our students, our student leaders, and a lot of that also includes professional development. What we did is we partnered with Google and we created a Google takeover of our Instagram account. We again recognized, could we do a panel and make it another Zoom session? Or could we have our students see that Instagram live bubble and tap it and find out who is taking over account? What are the careers available at Google? What are the myths? And these are tagged on our profile. So if you want to head over to the ECC account, it's at UW_ECC. You'll be able to see how the takeovers were done. One thing to note though is, while we love this partnership, our folks over at Google were not very tech savvy. A lot of the prep for this was letting the Googlers know what questions to expect, how to make your day interesting, right? We're working from home. Students don't really want to see you at your desk, right? And students also want to get to know you. How did you end up at Google? How many times did you apply before you got the interview? So this was all very exciting. This allowed them to also build mentorship opportunities with the Googlers. A lot of the Googlers linked it back to their own personal pages. Students had quicker access via DMs to the folks who were doing the takeovers than sometimes LinkedIn or sending an email or waiting at a job fair. And then the third program that I wanted to talk about was our Student Leadership Awards, right? Spring season is graduation season. Last year, right at the start of the pandemic, we kind of had to flip the way we do our student leadership program. One thing that I really love to do is I love to gamify experiences. I think people like the idea of collecting points. If you love Starbucks, you kind of can think about like collecting your stars and then redeeming those stars for points. This event was kind of the first gamified event that we had for our Ethnic Cultural Center. And we were highlighting our student groups. So the first stage was we have 5 different award categories, and we had students nominate their peer groups for these award categories. One you see here is Commitment to Community and Service Award. We have Organization of the Year Award. We had about 4 or 5 student clubs nominated per category. So that's about 25 groups. At the ECC, we represented over 150 student groups. So you could see it's a challenge to think about how are we going to get this together. We had 25 groups. And one of the ways in which we first started dwindling down who was going to come out on top was we did a spirit week. After each student group was nominated, we let them know, hey, you've been nominated for this category. If you want to be in the running to win, encourage your members to tag us and join us in Spirit Week. So you'll see there on the right, it says we got three times the points for the Filipino Student Association. And what we did was we asked the student members, hey, tag us, tag your friends, and let us know how you're joining. So this specific day was our dog days. It was our spirit day. So wearing purple and gold and showing love for the university was what got the students points. After this, the 2 groups that came out on top for each category, we're going to go into a popularity vote, which isn't normally the fairest thing, but it was, again, this was about having fun. Everyone was going to win, but those that came out on top are going to get $500 toward their organization and a plaque and bragging rights. After this second stage, we did bracket style voting. You can see to the left, which is this award. It came down to BSU and Kappa Delta Chi voting. And you can see here, we got over 1,000 votes on this specific category for this one day. It increased our engagement and everyone was really loving it. We had, specifically for the Black Student Union, we had the Black Student Union, not only across Washington State, but in other states voting for our students, family and friends voting for our students. So it brought a lot of engagement to our profile. So some of the tips, if you're thinking about gamifying this, is at the time we did this in April of 2020, and that's when TikTok was first coming around. And so what we were doing was TikTok was very popular for our students, and we said, let's do this. It so happened that our students kept calling it TikTok Day or TikTok Week for the ECC because they were so happy to engage in these. This was Dog Days, was Show Your Pride for the School. We had Pajama Day. We had, I don't really remember all of the days, but think about your high school spirit week, right? What are different themes that you can encourage people to just be silly and show up? And then partner with student organizations. Something that's not seen here is that we started something called Rso Appreciation Day. So for every organization that was nominated, we would show their profile on our account on Tuesdays and say, meet BSU, and they're in the running for this award, and this is what they've done all week. And that would bring engagement not only to us, but also our student groups organization page. So that's something to consider. This is going to be on the activity sheet that Beatriz shared, but if we can get it in the chat for a minute or two, share your account. Let's start following one another. Let's start getting ideas from one another. And then think about auditing your account. Are there accounts that you should be following? Or who's following you? Who has found you? I think for us, especially right now, since it's admission season, you're probably going to get an influx of new families finding your pages, right? So that's something to consider, is how our centers or your student group or your organization works to attract those students. If you were an incoming student and you came across this profile, what would it say about the organization you're representing? Awesome. So I'm looking at the comments and I can see UCSD Student Success Coaching Program, Scripps MAS Graduate Program.
And I shared in the chat also the file name. It's under Persona and Resources in that folder that we had shared earlier. So if you all want to take a look at that and maybe start thinking about auditing your accounts, maybe what are some campus partners that you should be following, and thinking how you can do that cross collaboration in terms of online engagement. And we can go off to the next slide. And so now I'll be talking a little bit more about some of the work that we do here at the Cross Cultural Center. We also do a lot of community work, but our work is also centered around social justice education. So we were doing a lot of this online social justice campaigns before COVID happened, but then once this remote environment became our new norm, we definitely started thinking about new initiatives and things that we can develop. We developed campaigns around different social justice topics. We used Powtoon, which we'll talk about later, which is an interactive video platform, to develop our series called Breaking It Down with the CCC. So instead of using still images, we were able to use videos to make it more interactive. A lot of our campaigns also highlight Black, Indigenous, and people of color and folks who are already doing the work. How are we using our platform to uplift other folks? I apologize, it's trash day, so if you can hear the noise in the background. We use our platform to uplift voices and folks who are doing a lot of that groundwork and community work, to be able to shine light to them and give credit where it's due, and then also allow our community members to continue doing that research and that work. And so our campaigns are sometimes centered in a 101, 201, and a 301. Sometimes our 101s can be looking at, implicit bias, explicit bias, sometimes like all the entry levels. Our 201 and our 301s dive in deeper into these topics. So some of the campaigns that we used at these levels were talking about, COVID-19 and capitalism and the impacts that it has on communities. And again, it's an interactive way to teach and to learn about different topics instead of just, maybe some folks don't have a lot of time to be reading journals or 5-page articles. This is like a summary kind of way to learn about a topic, but then we also provide them with our sources and additional resources in case they want to dive in more into the topic and explore that more. And so I will share what some of our campaigns will look like. This is one of the examples. Our marketing intern developed a Black First series. So this series was looking into Black creators and inventors who were the first to develop things. So this was Valerie Thomas, who was a creator of 3D movies. And again, on the second image, you can see that it's more about her, talking more about her background and experience, and then also having a photo of her. Usually our slide deck is about anywhere between 9 to 10. I think Instagram only allows you to have 10. But we talk about the person, kind of what they created, the impact that they had, and then again, share our resources as to where we gathered this information. And this is an example. Again, we developed Breaking It Down with the CCC through Powtoon, the Powtoon platform. And this was, again, an interactive way for students to develop that skill set, but then also interactively talk about a topic. This was particularly talking about COVID-19 and the impact that it has just on capitalism, productivity. That was done by one of our interns last year. So if you can go ahead and play that.
Breaking It Down with the CCC, U.S. Capitalism, Individualism, and COVID-19. The U.S. is doing worse than all the other countries in the world when it comes to COVID-19, as indicated by the ever-growing number of cases and deaths. It's easy to blame those who aren't wearing masks or our friends that aren't social distancing. However, it is important to look deeper than that. With the birth of this country came the birth of U.S. capitalism. Without a choice, we were born into a culture rooted in the messages that come with capitalism. What could those messages be? A huge one is individualism. In order to care for our community by decreasing the risk of spread, capitalism would have to go to a halt. Production would be stopped, and those who hold the means of production would have to recognize their workers at the very bottom of the production chain as human beings, not disposable items which solely exist to contribute to their wealth. They're also violating the efficiency that comes with the promise of capitalism, the maximization of profits.
So again, this was just a short clip of I believe this video was 5 minutes. So an interactive way to learn more about the topic. And this was on a current issue. So definitely using the platform and using your campaigns to talk about current social movements or things that are relevant, that are happening, that are impacting our students and the community that you serve. I think an example that I can give is that if maybe you run, let's say, the psychology department, what are some social justice issues or things that are happening in the world of psychology that you can build campaigns around? Who are some Black, Indigenous, people of color psychologists that you can highlight. So then that reflects, folks can see themselves on your pages and not just being a bulletin board. I think a lot of the times some of our Instagram pages could just be, putting out their programs, which is great. It's a great marketing tool. But then in order to make sure that you have that engagement, what content are we building to keep that engagement and retain that? Because we definitely don't want to be, they're just posting things that I could attend, which is great. But then you're also known for something else. So, a lot of folks also know us for having blogs that our interns write, and then now know us for having these different campaigns that we have developed. So thinking about different tools of engagement that you can create in order to retain and develop a higher following. And then this is another example of a campaign that we did in this past year. This was on environmental justice, and we highlighted activist Kara J. Espinosa Arroyo. She was already doing a lot of the groundwork around environmental justice. So going back to what I had talked about in terms of highlighting folks who are already doing the work and using our platform to kind of uplift those voices and making sure that our community members know more about these individuals so that they can continue their research and follow them or, dive in deeper in regards to the work that they're doing. And so we did want to do a short sharing activity so you all can brainstorm maybe three ideas for different content that you can develop to increase engagement. If you want to use that sheet, again, that's titled Persona and Resources, you can follow along, but thinking about what three ways or what three things that can you develop or think about to increase the engagement and also develop your audience and your persona. We'll give a little bit of time for that. I know that when I was developing things for the CCC, definitely thinking about intersectionality and the different, how different identities and different experiences intersect and how I can build campaigns around that. Being in the cross-cultural center, we serve everybody. So we kind of have a range of topics that we have a wide range of topics that we can cover. But if you are serving a certain population of students, thinking about, what content you can create that is applicable to them. Or if you're running a program, what kind of content do you think your audience would like to see? So if you all wanted to share some of those three, it doesn't have to be three. We put three down here because this is what the sheet said. But if you wanted to share maybe one or two, that would be great to hear from folks in the audience. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, and I think one other thing to consider, and this is something that we're running into at the moment, as I shared about the gala activity, that worked really well last year. And we're not seeing the same engagement this year around the same format. And a lot of factors go into place. Definitely thinking about having student input, student buy-in, just like you would in any regular program, is really important. Getting that feedback from students is important. And also there's a runway when you think about engaging students and families and anyone via social media. I think it's hard for us to sometimes wait for the big goal, right? Like I said, we had at some point over 1,000 views on our stories and we only have 2,000 followers. So we had pretty good engagement for the amount of people that we have following us. But to be honest, the first day of Spirit Week tanked. People we're still trying to figure out, our students were still, what is this? I don't know. No one else is being silly. And so it had to be from us, from the staff and our student staff who modeled the behavior, who did the TikToks before everyone else was, oh, okay, we're going to have fun with this. Knowing that it might be slow at first and then it takes off is really important. Having that consistency is going to be key.
Yeah, and I think that if you also work very closely with students or have student staff on your team, definitely use them for ideas because, they're closer in age to their peers and they know what's going on, what their interests are. I know that last year with our marketing intern, really had brainstorm meetings to talk about this is kind of like what I'm thinking, what are you thinking about, and then meshing those ideas. So definitely using your student staff. And I think it's also a great professional development opportunity for them to create content, to develop content depending on what field they're going into. But I think it's a great transferable skill because they took initiative and are developing innovation. So thinking about that as well, especially if you have or work very closely with student staff. And so not sure if folks maybe wanted to share one or two ideas they're thinking about. If not, we can go off to the next slide.
Yeah, and if you have questions, feel free to either drop them in the chat or in the Q&A regarding any of the activities that we have shared and the ways we have done things. We're going to share a little bit about some of the tools we use when understanding our engagement, but yeah, use the chat. Awesome. So I'll talk a little bit about management and tools. One of the things to consider is how your Instagram account is currently active. The way that we use Instagram in our personal lives is not going to be the same way that you use it for your organization. And that includes understanding the insight you might get with a business account versus insight you might get if you're a personal blogger or if you just have a fun account to share what you're eating, those sorts of things. For us at the ECC, we have a business account for our student group, or not our student group, our student center. And that is really important for us because it gives us insights such as this. So you'll see here that we'll see when our followers are most engaged. Usually this is showing a Friday. And if you think about regular in-person program, you might think Fridays aren't that well, depending on your student population. We have a lot of commuting students or a lot of students who go home for the weekends. Having a program Friday at 7 might not be in person, might not be the best, but you can see in our Instagram here, and I apologize that it's so little, but you can see here that our students are highly engaged between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on Instagram, right? It's pretty consistent across that allows us to, for most of us, social media is probably 30% of our jobs. We still have to do all the other workshops and coordination we're responsible for. If you're someone that's thinking about adding a couple of these tools to preset some of your engagement, this is a great way to figure that out. For us, we also have a calendar. Wednesdays, like today, are Wellness Wednesdays. So we have a student that focuses on sharing explicitly wellness and mindfulness tips for Wednesday. On Tuesdays, we had Rso Tuesdays. And this would help us know, like, we're not going to post at 9 a.m. Our students work in the evening. So let's post at 7 p.m. But also let's know that when you post, you want to be active for about an hour if students are engaging. And then you'll see that you get content insights as well. Not only will you, if you have your personal account, you probably see how many people liked or commented on your picture. But with a business account, you'll see how many times was this image sent to someone else. And that's really important because that lets you know, hey, I shared this flyer, or I shared this event, or I shared this information, and people are sending it to one another. So that means my community wants to see more of this. And then you'll also see how many times it was saved. There's this big thing about the Instagram algorithm that no one understands. And you'll probably see it come around a couple of times on social media where people say, well, save and like and comment so that it helps us beat the Instagram algorithm. And this is something to have that in your awareness. The other ones, Sprout Social, and I believe this has changed in the last couple of months, maybe, in terms of what their free and paid accounts are able to do. But if you're someone that is managing multiple platforms, so you're not just on Instagram, but you're on Twitter and you're on Facebook, this helps you manage those multiple accounts and schedule posts. For us at the ECC, we're not that active in many of the other platforms. We do have a big social media team in terms of our students. We have about one student assigned per platform. So something like Sprout Social doesn't make sense for us. The other thing is Linktree. You probably noticed you can only put one link in your bio, and you're thinking, how do I share multiple registrations, multiple surveys, multiple websites? A Linktree is free, and you can buy a paid version, which gives you a little bit, gives you more analytics and also gives you more customizable options. We use the free one at the ECC, and it's really great to just be able to post a picture and say, check out the link in our bio. The Linktree isn't the only platform that's out there to help you automate different clickable events, but I think it's the most straightforward in terms of text and just saying, ECC Gala registration or whatever your event may be. And then Canva. So for all of the graphics you've seen, most of them, all of them have been designed on Canva. I don't have a graphic design background. There's a free and a paid version. The paid version, actually, you might be able to get some benefits with an education account, and you can use, there's templates on there, and there's also a design school. So if you're thinking about professional development, not only for yourself, but for your students, I have students on my team that I have them go through the design school, through some of them, because they might not have design backgrounds, and I'm asking them to create flyers or asking them to create Instagram stories, and they don't know where to start. And that's okay, right? Again, because one of the biggest challenges, what is our organization's account, and then what is my personal account, and knowing that those are two different things.
And I'll add that Linktree is a great way to, like, Instagram doesn't allow you to have links. If you're using Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, it does allow you to link links, but Instagram does not allow you. So if you're promoting an event, people can't click on the caption to register or whatever it may be. So something that we've done at the CCC was create just a spreadsheet that's linked to a Linktree button, so folks can easily register, just click, because when we're promoting our events, we're not able to click on stuff in the captions. I think it's also a way to be accessible and making sure that everything is just in one place, so folks aren't searching multiple posts or scrolling through your page, and then frustration could lead to them not registering for something or engaging with you. For Linktree, I know that someone's commented on there that you can create personal or customized paid landing pages, but that is for the paid version. For the free version, some things are a little bit more limited, but we also use the free version and get some analytics off of it. So I would say look at the cost benefit to see which one would be more beneficial for your department. For Canva, if you have the means and have the budget, I would recommend asking your department to subscribe to Pro. There are just a lot of more graphics. There's a lot more things that you can use with the Pro account that you can really develop aesthetically pleasing campaigns. I'm not a graphic designer either, and so Canva has really been my go-to and our interns go-to to develop stuff. And again, I'll talk about Powtoon. This was a video platform that we used for our campaign. There are paid plans that range from $90 to $200 a month. I think there is an ed special, so making sure that you use your department's email address to ensure that you get that benefit. Again, it's very similar to Canva, kind of a video version of Canva is how I like to describe it, because there's different templates that you can use. Again, I'm not a video editor. I don't have that skill set. And because I don't have that skill set, I'm not able to teach our interns who are developing these things, but Powtoon is a very easy platform that folks can use and learn more from. Highly recommend looking into it and subscribing to using it if you're looking into developing videos and more interactive content on your pages. And I'll go ahead and share, I know some folks joined a little bit later, so I'll go ahead and share the folder, the resource folder that we created that has the persona activity. It also has some content development, and also I think a big thing right now, or things that we should also consider, is definitely being accessible and ADA friendly on all our social media. Sometimes our captions don't describe pictures, or so folks are using a screen reader, they can't really see, or they can't really tell what's going on with your post. So if you're using image descriptions, this is a way for folks who are using screen readers that are able to really get a full sense of what you're posting. And that is also a presentation by someone who did accessibility for social media. Highly recommend looking at that and seeing what you can get in order to make sure that captions and things are accessible for all users. And we'll leave this, there was a question. Do you tend to find different types of engagement work better for graduate students versus undergraduates? Mainly our following, I believe, is undergraduates. I can't really tell sometimes, so I'm not really sure. I don't know, Angelica, I know you worked with some grad students in that mentoring program that you all did, so I'm not sure if you might have some insight on that.
Yeah, we find that our professional development, like Google, that was very much active with our graduate students asking questions. We do audit our account, so that's something to consider. As I talked about the runway, before you get to the peak of your program, you want to start small, or you want to start with daily questions. Definitely using the stickers on Instagram stories is really important. So one of the things we started doing last year, and we're probably going to do it again, is we ask, let us know, are you a freshman? Are you a graduate student or undergrad? Are you an undergrad or are you a graduate student? And that gives us, we'll get those metrics, right? 50% said their first years, 60% said this. And then we can say, oh, cool, if you're a graduating senior, what advice do you have for the incoming freshman? That was something we did last year, and it was really popular, right? Our graduating seniors want to give words of wisdom. And then we also partner, while our account is geared toward, so as the Ethnic Cultural Center, we're geared toward all students of color on UW's campus, and not just UW Seattle, but UW Tacoma and UW Bothell. We do a lot of cultural events or cultural programming. There is an office on campus called UW GoMap, which is for graduate students of color, and we partner with them on activities. A lot of times we will tag team with them if we're talking about graduate student scholarships. They started a series for people of color hiking. And that's been a series that they started last year, in terms of mental health, and has been really active to the point where now that it's safer to be outdoors, some of them are doing workshops out in the open, are doing hiking. And I think for graduate students, there might be less engagement to kind of be online as often as our undergrads are, but they are coming to our profiles for information. That's something to consider in terms of engagement. Like, they do want to know what's happening, but they might not be on an Instagram live for an hour.
And then the next question was, do we have any thoughts on some newer social media apps like Clubhouse or Discord? I don't use either of the apps. I know what they are, and I've seen colleagues and friends use the app. I think with Clubhouse, there is just some limitation because I think it's just on Apple right now. I'm not sure if that's changed, but I know when it started off, it was just for Apple users and wasn't on Android. I think that's something to also be aware about, that not everyone has an iPhone. And Discord, when I was a student, I knew that it was more of like a gaming type of app, or like where folks talked about gaming a lot more. But yeah, I know that some students, recently have started using Discord and moving away from GroupMe, because you can create different channels. And then if they don't want to use Slack, this is a tool that they use. I don't know if you have a perspective on that.
Yeah, I would say what I'm seeing is our graduate students, like Clubhouse, depending on how you get informed by it, people might join because of professional development. I think it really varies. I don't think our undergraduate students are very much interested in what Clubhouse has to offer, but in terms of what they were interested in for our undergrads, oh my God, what was that? There was a video game, a mobile game that was really active for a while, and our students really loved Discord, and they really like Twitch as another way to engage or do student shows. We have, again, because we're a cultural center, we had a lot of student performances that we were unable to do. So one of the questions we had as a center, we do have a theater on campus, and was, do we just stream on Twitch and allow these student groups to perform on our stage and then live stream it? Because our students had tried to do it through Zoom, and that was very difficult. They tried to do it through Instagram Live, and that's really tiny. So I did see Discord for our students who were aware of it through gaming. Clubhouse, I haven't seen it so much with our undergrads as I've seen it our graduate students, really, our PhD students really trying to be, what is this about? How can this help me professionally?
And I don't see any other questions, but if there are any other questions, we want to thank you all for joining us today and hearing more about some of the work that we do. If you want to stay in contact, feel free to reach out to us. I'm not sure if you want to drop in your email, Angelica. Definitely use that folder that we shared. I know some of the stuff is for business, but take what you get from it and apply it to your department, your program. But yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach back out to us, and I'll drop my email on there as well.
Yeah, thanks for coming. If you have any more questions, we'll be here. But if you want to take back 12 minor your time for your next meeting, feel free to go.
Thank you all.